Hello everyone. So today we'll be starting with Gupta. This will be a continuation video. Set 2 of Gupta will be covering art, architecture, and literature. Literature means the secular literature and the religious literature. In art and architecture, we'll be covering the important sculptures, temples, that is Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Okay, fine. So we'll be starting with architecture. So this was important period in the development of temple. This is the time when the first surviving earliest temples started from the Gupta era. So some of the earliest surviving temples belong to this period and are mentioned below. Most of them are found in hilly areas of Madhya Pradesh. Mostly they are found in Madhya Pradesh, mostly in ruined state, and they were generally built in stone. So you have to remember here, they are generally built in stone. And their earliest surviving temples, like from the Gupta period only, the North Indian temples started. You can say the genesis of the North Indian temples or the Central Indian temples or the Nagara architecture goes to the Gupta period. Vishnu stone temple at Tigawa, Shiva stone temple, Parvati stone temple at Natsna Kuthara, Buddhist shrines at Sanchi, Buddhist temple at Bodh Gaya, that is in Bihar, and Mahabodhi temple is the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Then Dasavatar temple, very important, in Diogad, and Da Parvatiya temple in Assam. So these are most of the important temples, and they're very early temples, so they're not in full-fledged form. They're in very ruined state. Okay. Okay, fine. Now brick temples, stone temples were there because generally it was stone, not 100%. Brick temples were also there. In addition to the stone temples, so above were the stone temples. Brick temples have been found in Bhitargaon, Parpur, that is in Bangladesh, Sirpur, that in Chhattisgarh. So brick temples were also found. So the thing is, if a question comes ki only stone temples, then that will be wrong statement. Brick temples were also found. The ancient temples of Madhya Pradesh, UP, Rajasthan are all made up of sandstone. The temples of both religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, show similar architectural developments. So in Gupta, it is a very important point. In Gupta, when we talk about Hinduism architecture and even Buddhist architecture, the temples of both religions had a similar architectural developments in the Gupta period. So it's a unique point. And the ancient temples were all made up of sandstone. Okay, so the main components, we all know Garbhagriha was there, Mandap was there, Shikhara was there. These are main components of the Nagara architecture. And Garbhagriha is where the DT we keep the DT. Mandap is the place where we worship. Okay, and Shikhara is the top. Above the Garbhagriha there will be a mountain-like spire, that is the Shikhara. Early Gupta period temples were rather small. The Garbhagriha is only 10 into 10 feet, just large enough to house an image. So they were small. The mandap was also small, roof was generally flat, temples walls were plain, but the doorways were often intricately carved. Doorways were carved. However, in later Gupta period, things started increasing, and the size also increased. The lot of things increased. Okay, and late Gupta period temples, like in the 5th and 6th centuries, began to be built on a raised plinth and a shikhara, that is the Dasavatara temple in Madhya Pradesh. Now, because Dasavatara temple is important, so we have to learn something about it. Okay. So it is in Jhansi district, Deoghad, 500 AD or 500 C. It is a classic example of late Gupta period type of temple. It is built in Nagara style, and a style of temple architecture that became popular in North India. It is built in Panchayatana style of temple architecture. So Panchayatana style, you can see here. In Panchayatana style, what happens? The main shrine is built on a rectangular plinth. So this is the rectangular plinth. Okay. The main shrine is built in the rectangular plinth, while 4 smaller shrines are built at the 4 corners. 4 corners. Okay. And making it a total number of 5 shrines. Hence the name Panchayatan. Its Shikhara is of Rekha Prasada type. It is a type of shikara. There are three kinds of shikaras. When we learn about art and culture, pure art and culture, we'll come to know there are Rekha Prasad style. Total around three styles, or 3 to 4 styles are there. The temple is west facing, whereas most temples are east or northeast. So it is unique point. It has a grand doorway flanked by standing female figures representing river goddess Ganga and Yamuna. So like sculptures of female figures were also there, were representing Ganga and Yamuna. The temple carries three main reliefs of Vishnu. That is, one is Sheshaya, Sheshashayana, that is in which the Vishnu is shown reclining on the Sheshnag called Anant. These are all sculptures. शेषनाग जैसे हम बोलते हैं हिंदी में. Narayana, that who shows the discussion between human soul and eternal divine, and one other, the third sculpture is Gajendra Moksha, that is the imagery represent the story of achieving moksha and shows Vishnu's suppression of an asur who had taken the form of an elephant. Okay, owing to this representation of Vishnu, the temple was mistakenly named as the Savatara temple. Okay, these are the three important sculptures you have to remember. Okay, so because of this, so it is the significance why the name is given. This is the significance behind the naming of this temple. Okay, stupas, biharas, and chaityas. Buddhist monastic establishments continued to be built during this period. For example, many viharas, shrines, sculptures at Shanchi belong to the Gupta period. The Buddhists continued to excavate rock-cut chaityas, and the Jainas, that is the Jains or the Vaishnavas or the Saivas, they all imitated these in the later centuries. See, you have to, before seeing this video, you have to read the set 1, the previous video of Gupta, so that you can connect. Okay, hence the rock cut architecture of this period is mostly Buddhist. A few exceptions are the caves at Udaygiri and Elephanta. Ajanta caves, Bagh caves are the most prominent examples of cave architecture. This all we have covered in the last class, in the last video. You can check Ajanta inscription of the Ajanta inscription is of the Vakatakas, and Vakatakas were contemporary to Gupta. Okay, Ajanta Caves. Ajanta Caves, Maharashtra, UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is the famous, as stated earlier, it's the most famous cave site. So it is purely Buddhist. No Hinduism, no Jainism. It is purely Buddhist, only Buddhist. Remember Ajanta Caves. And it is hill का नाम है Sahyadri Hills. River का नाम है Waghora River. This year question also came. This year prelims 2021. Okay, the 28 caves belong to two periods. 5 were excavated in the Satavahana period, while the rest belong to the Vakataka period. So when we studied Satavahana, also Satavahana had contributed something to Ajanta caves. This we have studied in Satavahana lecture. So, but mostly it was more, most of the patronage was given by the Vakataka period. Out of the 28 caves, 2 are Chaityas, cave number 19 and 26, rest all are Viharas. Chaitya means prayer halls, Viharas means where the monks used to take shelter during the rainy season. So these are some of the points you have to remember for Ajanta caves, because Ajanta caves is very important from exam point of view. Ajanta, Ellora, Bagh caves, lot of caves are there. Usually they every 2 years they will ask, 2 years or 3 years or even every year they can ask, because it is very favorite topic of UPSC. Next, these caves indicate the flourishing status of the monastic community of the Ajanta. These caves are richly ornamented with sculptures which are supplemented with exquisite mural paintings. Mural paintings भी है, walls पे, ceilings पे and pillars. Okay, painting section में हम पढ़ेंगे आगे. We'll be covering that in painting section. Now coming to Bagh caves. Bagh caves, Dhar district MP. They are a group of 9 Buddhist rock-cut caves located on the slopes of Vindhyas. Okay, so here Bagh caves are Vindhya. Ajanta is Sahyadri Hills. This is Vindhyan range. As compared to Ajanta caves, these are relatively plain and simple. They are very plain and simple. 9 Buddhist rock-cut caves. These are mainly these also were also originally adorned with paintings, but now have not survived. Paintings were there, but now paintings are not there. Next, coming to Udaygiri caves. Udaygiri caves, we are talking about Madhya Pradesh Udayagiri Caves. Complex of 20 rock cut caves, of which one is dedicated to Jainism, all others are Hinduism. So here in Udayagiri Caves we find no Buddhism. Buddhism is not there. You have to be very clear in which cave is dedicated to which religion. Okay, so it is dedicated to both Jainism and Hinduism. All Hindu caves have sculptures depicting Hindu deities. Obviously, it will be there. One cave has an inscription belonging to the reign of Chandragupta II. It mentions that the cave was a gift. Cave was a gift as a temple of Shambhu by his minister Virasena. No need to remember this, but just need to remember Udayagiri caves, rock cut caves, Jainism and Hinduism. Fine. Next is Elephanta Caves. Elephanta Caves is also very famous and it's very important static topic. Now, Elephanta Caves. There is an island called Elephanta Island off the coast of Mumbai, UNESCO World Heritage Site. This island was given this name by the Portuguese after a large elephant sculpture once located here. So you have to remember, not by the English, by the Portuguese. The caves were originally Buddhist. Originally it was Buddhist, but later it was dominated by Hindu Shaivite faith. 5 caves like Shaivism or Hinduism ho gaya later. The most famous cave is the cave number 1, that is the main or the Great Cave, dated around mid 6th century AD. Mid 6th century AD means like later Gupta, you can say. It is a large cave consisting of a grand pillared hall, at one end of which is a square shrine containing a linga and a yoni. The walls of the hall are decorated with several fine relief carvings. One of these depicts Lakulisha, indicating the caves were associated with the Pashupata sect. Just remember the name. It was like the caves are associated with a particular. There are a lot of subsects, right? In our Gupta class, in last lecture, I told you, lot of subsects happened under Hinduism, or Brahmanism. So no, we can't remember all the sects name, subsects name. So one of them is Pasupata sect. So this Elephanta Caves dedicated to this particular sect. Okay, obviously Hindu sect. The most spectacular carving, however, is a relief carving of Maheshwar or Maheshwara with 3 faces. This one. This is the Trimurti sculpture. If Trimurti sculpture is very famous sculpture, you can like a lot of state exams they have already asked this question. Trimurti sculpture. It is Elephanta Caves. Okay, next is Sittanavasal Caves. It is also very important. 7th century, like later Gupta. Even you can say very late. Like Gupta was nearly into end. Tamil Nadu. These are Jain caves. These caves bear 7 inscriptions recording the names of the donors who gifted the caves to Jain ascetics. See, these are all topic of pure art and culture. Okay, but because I'm covering Gupta, so some information you can just have a look. But all these things in detail you have to cover in art and culture. Okay, so from here we come to know that yes, in caves the donors' names were also there who gifted the caves to the Jain ascetics. Okay, this was also a phenomenon. Like donors were there. Okay. Right, now coming to proper art. Proper art, first will like paintings, sculpture. These are all part of art. Okay. First we'll cover the sculpture part. You just need to know the sculpture name and where it is associated with. That's it. So sculpture first, there is a very famous sculpture in Ajanta Caves. There is a very famous. Lot of sculptures are there, but some famous sculptures you have to remember. Just you need to remember the name and any famous or unique point related to that sculpture. One is Temptation of the Buddha. That is called Mara Vijay. Okay. Mara Vijay means victory over Mara. Is painted at many places in Ajanta Caves. Our cave number 26 shows the theme of Mara Vijay on a sculptural relief panel, which is also the largest स्कल्चरल पैनल अजंता का सबसे लार्जेस्ट स्कल्चरल पैनल मारा विजय का है एंड yes, this is the unique point. It shows the image of Buddha in a center sitting under a tree in Padmasana. His right hand in Bhumispars mudra. This mudra is nothing but a gesture of hand reaching the ground. ये भूमिस्पर्श मुद्रा एक बुद्धिज्म का एक lot, there are a lot of mudras in Buddhism, no need to go in detail, but भूमिस्पर्श mudra is very famous one. And calling the earth to witness his purity and chastity despite the temptations of Mara. ठीक है? So Buddha is surrounded by Mara's army and his daughters. Okay, this is the sculpture. Mara represents desire and is shown contemplating how to disturb the Buddha, but Buddha was undisturbed. So that is why Mara Vijay. Oh, it is in Ajanta. Remember, it is in Ajanta, not in Ellora, not in Elephanta. First of all, Ellora caves are not related to Buddhist. Not related to Gupta. Ellora is related to Rashtrakutas. Okay, when we cover Rashtrakutas, we'll cover at that point of time. And Ellora पे Buddhism भी है, Jainism भी है, Hinduism भी है. All three are there. But here it's only Buddhist in Ajanta. No Jainism, no Hinduism. Okay, Ajanta cave sculpture. Another is there is Mahaparinirvana. Mahaparinirvana, we know when Buddha was dying. That event is called Mahaparinirvana. So Mahaparinirvana event is also sculpture. The sculpture of this event is also there in Ajanta. This sculpture also appears on the wall number cave number 26. This cave was among the last caves excavated and has more detailed and elaborate sculptures. It comprises of a 7-meter long grand image of Buddha in a reclining pose. This is the pose representing Parinirvana or Mahaparinirvana. He is surrounded by numerous celestial musicians above and mourning followers below. जो मॉर्न करते थे उनको फॉलोअर्स वो भी हैं एंड सेलेस्टियल ऑब्जेक्ट्स भी है. ठीक है. Okay, next sculpture is in Udayagiri cave. Okay, so in Udayagiri cave, and Udayagiri cave में Hinduism है. Okay, Hinduism है. So here we have a Vishnu in Varaha avatar. Okay, Vishnu in Vara. See, first of all, when you see Vishnu, so it is Hinduism. So obviously, if any option it will come, Ajanta, you can clearly cancel that option because Ajanta has nothing to do with Hinduism. Okay, so Vishnu in Varaha avatar cave 5 shows a powerful image of Vishnu, 7 into 4 meter in his man boar incarnation, rescuing the goddess Earth from the waters. It is one of the most studied reliefs from the Gupta era. The story is narrated in the Vishnu Puran. Here Vishnu Puran may be narrated here. Puranas is a separate topic which I've already covered. Puran is a very important topic. And the Vara is shown lifting goddess Prithvi with his tusks. Vara is flanked on both sides by sages and celestial bodies who praise his greatness. Under a foot of the Varaha is shown a Naga in the state of submission as indicated in the Anjali Mudra. So this is another Mudra. Okay, another sculpture is there, the Iran boar sculpture at Iran. Iran is a place and it's a district. Okay, Sagar district at a place called Iran. There is a magnificent freestanding 11 feet high boar sculpture erected in honor of God Vishnu, under the neck of which is found in the Toraman inscription. Toraman was a Puna attack हुआ था, Mehirkul and Toraman. Previous lecture आपको देखना पड़ेगा. Without the previous lecture you can't connect. Okay, the entire body of the boar is covered with images of miniature sages who are supposed to have taken refuge in his bristles. The earth goddess is hanging to his right tusk. So Iran boar sculpture भी अगर आएगा, so it is Hinduism and Gupta. Next sculpture is related to Buddhism. That is the Sarnath Buddha sculpture. Dharma Chakra Parivartan of Buddha. It is also an event. Okay, Dharma Chakra Parivartan, where he gives the speeches, delivering of the first sermon is the Dharma Chakra Parivartan. Okay, so it is also Sarnath Buddha sculpture. जो Dharma Chakra Parivartan event था बुद्धा के life में during the Mahajanapad 6th century, 5th century time. At that time, that event is sculpted here in 5th century AD, after long years. ये यूपी में है, सारनाथ यूपी में है. The sculpture is considered as a masterpiece of Gupta art and craftsmanship. And after the land capital of Asoka. This is the most famous sculpture of Sanchi. And the sculpture is the representative of the historical event जो हुआ था of delivering the first sermon by Buddha. डियर पार्क में किए थे. किसको किए थे? टू हिज 5 disciples. 5 disciples का नाम मैंने बताया था मैंने बुद्धिज्म क्लास में. इफ एनीवन नोज कैन मेंशन इन द कमेंट बॉक्स 5 disciples का नाम क्या था. What are the names of the 5 disciples? Okay, the Buddha is shown seated in a Padmasana posture. Okay, Padmasana posture mein his hands are held in chest level in the Dharma Chakra mudra. This is also a mudra. It's a mudra of teaching in which both hands touch each other, depicting the turning of the Dharma wheel. This is the thing. फिर the halo at the back of his head, जो ये halo है, the halo at the back of his head is exquisitely ornamented. और ये भी बोल सकते हो ये बड़ा वाला जो है, ठीक है. Beneath the throne is a chakra flanked by disciples with folded hands. A deer is sitting on the either side of the chakra, okay? And the sculpture is made in Chunar sandstone. You have to remember this. It is a fine example of Sarnath school of sculpture. Face is round, eyes half closed, and this one, I guess, some name is there. Okay. Circular curled hair. It has circular curled hair. Drapery is transparent but have no folds, unlike the Mathura images. So here Mathura versus the Gandhara image का भी जो difference था, it's a topic during post Mauryan Kanishka time में हमने पढ़ा था. Okay, so Sarnath Buddha sculpture is related to Gupta. Okay, don't get confused with Kanishka. Okay, it is a different sculpture. It is Gupta time. फिर बामियम बुद्धास अफगानिस्तान पे है. ओके, अफगानिस्तान पे है, यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट. देयर आर 2 gigantic Buddha figures carved into a cliff side at Bamiyan, once the capital of the wider Yuna Empire that extended from Persia to Khotan. It is called, locals लोग बुलाते थे इसको सलसल और शमना. रिमेंबर द शमामा और सलसल. By the locals, the Buddhas were once the tallest standing Buddhas in the world. Unfortunately, दो है, ठीक है. One is 55, one is, unfortunately, the sculptures were destroyed some years ago by the Taliban. It was in news some years back. Okay, next is Iron Pillar of Mehrauli, very famous, दिल्ली में है, कुतुब मीनार कॉम्प्लेक्स में. The pillar was constructed by Gupta Emperor Chandragupta II, 7.2 हाइट में है, 16 इंच डायमीटर में है, weight 6 tons है. Okay, it was initially erected at Vishnu Padagiri. It was brought, okay, it was initially erected at Vishnu Padagiri. Remember the name, that is the modern Udayagiri near Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, it was brought by whom? Mention in the comment box. It was brought by whom to Delhi in the medieval time? Who brought it in the medieval time? Mention it. Okay, so now its current location is Delhi. It was initially done by Chandragupta II at Madhya Pradesh, but now it is at Delhi. So who bought it? You have to mention it in the comment box. The pillar is famous for its rust resistant properties. Very common, everyone knows it. It is rust resistant since that point of time because due to addition of phosphorus. Remember the name here, element name, because of phosphorus, and reflects the remarkable metallurgical skills of that time. What happens is phosphorus together with oxygen from air contribute to the formation of a protective veneer on the surface, which forms again if damaged by scratching. This is the mechanism which happens. That is why it is rust resistant. Okay. Now coming to painting. So we are done with sculpture. Now we'll come to painting. Painting, Ajanta cave paintings. Obviously nothing to read here. Ajanta cave paintings, lot of bodhisattvas, lot of paintings were there, but related to only Buddhism. Remember, only Buddhism. I'll just tell you the important points here. But it was only Buddhism. Okay. Remember, Ajanta is the only surviving example of paintings of the 1st century BC and the 5th century AD only. So during that point of time, 1st century BC से 5th century AD तक, it is the only surviving example which is still surviving. Painting related to painting. Okay, lot of things. Paintings depict Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Jataka stories, Yaksha, Apsaras, Buddhist art. It is only, remember, it is only Buddhist art. Okay, a lot of things were there. Human figures were also done, and multicolored population, where artists used and mixed 6 colors: white, red and yellow, black, green, blue. Now these colors are done from something will be there, right? From lime, kaolin and gypsum. White, red and yellow from ochre colored pottery we have studied in IVC. Black from soot, green from glauconite mineral. Remember the name, green from glauconite mineral, and blue from lapis lazuli. Now lapis lazuli was famous in IVC. Okay, Indus Valley civilization. Except for lapis lazuli, all other materials were available nearby, because lapis lazuli in Indus Valley civilization, it was brought from Afghanistan. So same thing, except for lapis lazuli, all other materials were available nearby. Artists must have used brushes made up of animal hair. The technique used in the painting is called fresco secco. Remember the technique used at that point of time, fresco secco. Okay. So here painting में ज़्यादा कुछ है नहीं, खास करके अजंता में this much information is more than enough. It is notable that the Vishnu Dharmottara Puran, a supplement to Vishnu Puran, has a section on painting. It was composed in 7th century AD, the very time when artists were completing their last paintings at Ajanta. So 7th century AD is later Gupta, very late, like Gupta was ending. So Vishnu Puran में एक ऐसा kind of a supplement है, Vishnu Dharmottara Puran, which had a section on painting. And that point of time, 7th century, the artists were completing their last paintings at Ajanta. Okay. Because Gupta was ending at that point of time. Okay, now coming to literature. Literature is purely factual, you have to remember everything. Okay, anything can come. So this period of Gupta, that is the 300 AD to 600 AD, is often regarded as the classical age. Okay, both in poetry and prose. And this was also a time when the transition from Prakrit to Sanskrit in royal inscriptions became complete. Before, most of the Buddhist thing was inscription were in Prakrit. Okay, in Mauryan time, even post-Mauryan time. But after post-Mauryan, from the Shunga, Vaishnavism started, but it was completed. The full transition from Prakrit to Sanskrit in royal inscriptions became complete during Gupta. Remember, because Gupta में, जैसे कि in last class I told you, there was revival of Brahmanism. And when there is a revival of Brahmanism, means obviously Sanskrit will be there. Okay. So the Sanskrit works composed were both religious bhi tha, secular bhi tha. Not only secular. Yes, it was more number of texts were in secular in nature, but religious texts were also there. In fact, the Gupta period is particularly notable for the production of secular text. The period is also known for various texts written on Sanskrit grammar, science, technology. The entire corpus of Sanskrit works belonging to this period may be classified under the following headings. So we'll distinguish it, like what are the secular literature, what are the religious literature, so that you have an idea ki, okay, this book is related to this. It is not related to only religion. Okay. So obviously in religious literature, Puranas, epics will come. Okay. Because they are related to one particular religion. Okay. So Ramayana and Mahabharata Puranas were given final shape during this period. They were there from before, but the final shape happened at this point of time, Gupta. The story of Ramayana reinforces the patriarchal mindset. A son must obey his father, younger brother must obey his elder brother in all circumstances, rational or irrational. A wife must be able to prove her chastity to maintain her position in family and society. The Mahabharata shows that kinship shows no kinship. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that one must carry out one's dharma, that is the duties assigned according to caste and rank, under all circumstances, without any desire for reward. So these are the things which are mentioned in those books. Both epics also represent the idea of victory of good over evil. Puranas closely follow the lines of this topic of the epics. They are full of myths and sermons meant for edification of the common people. Okay, Smritis. Now, Smritis. Now, the thing is, Smritis were already there. Okay, Smritis. Similarly, Smritis were already there in later Vedic, but compilation. All things of compilation happened in Gupta. That is why um, it is a classical age. Several Dharma Shastra works such as Narad Smriti, that is law book, Vishnu, Brihaspati, Katana Smriti is everything. Katana is grammar. They are composed in this period. Okay, Gupta. Smritis were law books in which socio-religious norms were written in verse. What are the socio-religious norms? What you have to follow in society? What religious thing you have to follow in society? What social thing you have to follow in society? All these things were written. Commentaries on Smriti were written in post-Gupta. Now Smriti abhi compile ho gaya. The compilation happened in Gupta. After the post-Gupta period, lot of people came and commented on it. Commented and made some books and text out of it. Okay. Now coming to the Shada-darshana school, the six schools. Last to last class, we had studied about the six schools of the philosophy, ancient philosophy. All these things happened in this part of time. Like yes, something happened before also, but the compilation of the main ideological core principles happened during the Gupta time. So these are the six systems of the Astic tradition: Purva Mimamsa, Vedanta, Yoga. So all these things, six schools are there. We'll cover that. Uh, and these are Astic tradition. And Nastic tradition is, there are two kinds of traditions. Okay, one is Astika tradition. Astic had six schools. Another one is Nastic tradition or Nastika tradition. That is in you get that Buddhism, Jainism, फिर आजीविका, फिर चारवाका. Okay. Fine. Although the origins of these systems lay in much earlier time, the origin lays in much earlier time, but some of their cardinal principles were enunciated during this period. This becomes very important statement for exam point of view. Their cardinal principles were enunciated during Gupta period. These systems are often treated as three interrelated pairs: Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa, न्याय एंड वैशेषिका, संख्या एंड योगा एक साथ ही पढ़ते हैं. संख्या उसका अगला वर्जन है योगा, वैशेषिका उसका नेक्स्ट वर्जन है न्याय, पूर्व मीमांस उसका नेक्स्ट वर्जन है उत्तर मीमांस. ठीक है, और उत्तर मीमांस उसका नेक्स्ट वर्जन है पूर्व मीमांस. पढ़ेंगे आगे. ओके, ऑल दीज आर फ्रेम्ड विद इन अ लिबरेशन थियोलॉजी. द अल्टीमेट एम ऑफ वाज मोक्षा. मतलब ये सब चीज मोक्षा के तरफ ही जा रहा है. टेल अबाउट मोक्षा बट इन अ डिफरेंट वेज. Okay, this we have already covered, but we'll cover it again. Purva Mimamsa means reflection or inquiry, and the Mimamsa school was dedicated to Vedic inquiry. Thus, Vedic inquiry means like, okay, we are supporting the Vedic text, but we have to interpret it properly. That is called Vedic inquiry. Thus, Vedic school stressed on the authority of the Vedas and aimed at explaining the Vedic text. It focused on explaining the earlier Vedic text dealing with sacrificial acts. Its earliest known thinker was Jaimini. Remember, second. Now, see here, you have to be very careful. Purva Mimans was propounded by Jaimini. You have to remember the name. Now, this Jaimini is from 2nd century BC. Now, 2nd century BC is Mauryan. He was the author of the Mimamsa Sutra. But we are studying Purva Mimamsa in Gupta. Why? Because the core principles got enunciated in Gupta, but it was propounded by Jainini, who is from Mauryan, 2nd century BC. We have to be very careful. So Purva Mimamsa, they stressed on the authority of the Vedas, but they said, okay, but it has to be interpreted nicely through karma, karma, like through karma, through knowledge, everything. You simply can't blindly follow the Vedic text which are dealing with sacrificial acts. You have to explain it. ठीक है, पूर्व मीमांस. Next comes Uttar Mimans. It is the upgraded version of this. Uttar Mimamsa is Vedanta, nothing but Vedanta. That is the end of the Vedas. This school focused on explaining the latter part of the Vedas, that is Upanishads. Okay, and Upanishads also did not like sacrifice. They were against sacrifice. Upanishads are fully focusing on knowledge and reflects ideas that emerged from them. And Upanishad is also part of later Vedic. Sorry, early Vedic. And reflects ideas that emerged from them. For example, knowledge, more important, knowledge and liberation. Like what Vedic text, original Vedic text told ki if you want to have liberation or moksha, you have to follow the sacrificial rites, rites. But they said no. Upanishad said no. Why sacrificial? Knowledge should be the thing to achieve liberation. Its key thinker was Bhadrayana, who wrote the Brahma or the Vedanta Sutra. Brahma Sutra or the Vedanta Sutra. Vedantic schools give an account of Brahma, that is the central concept of Upanishads, the world, and the relation between the two, between the Brahma and the world. The most influential Vedantic school is the Shankara Vedanta, named after its founder. It holds that Brahma is real, everything else is illusion. Okay? So this is the Uttar Mimamsa. This is the Vedanta, which is still now. This is the more followed, or in modern times, this is the one which is followed. Vedanta. Okay. Then Nyaya. The Nyaya school is primarily concerned with logic and epistemology, that is a branch of philosophy concerned with knowledge. The school's origin is described to Akshapada Gautam. Now, Akshapada Gautam, created as the author of Nyaya Sutra, that is 1st century AD. So this is also not before, like post Mauryan and pre Gupta Nyaya school. So Nyaya was frequently used in debates with the Buddhists since they took pride in their advanced language knowledge in the use of logic. Vaishashika, from Vishesh meaning particularity, Vaishashika school aims at investigating the particularities of various things that exist in the world. It basically it is the otherwise called as the atomic theory. Just remember. It postulates atomism, according to which the universe was created from a number of atoms or parmanu. A key text is the Vaishashika Sutra of Ulluka Kannad. Its name is Kannad. In normal books, it was given by Kannad, K-N-A-D-A. Okay. So you can say from here it was the starting or the beginning of physics in India. Beginning of physics in India. I have some notes related to some extra notes related to these 6 schools. I'll I'll put it in the description. I'll upload in my Telegram channel and put the link in the description. You can check the description and see it. That PDF, I'll share it, so that you can just you can have a holistic information from this and that PDF. Okay, then Sankhya school. The origin of school is ascribed to Kapil, or his full name is Kapil Muni, K-I-P-L-M-U-N-I, Kapil Muni. A key text, Sankhya Karika, is ascribed to Ishvara Krishna. Just remember the name Ishvara Krishna or Ishvara Krishna, जैसे भी आप बोल सकते हो. Sankhya deals with detailed ontology, that is the theory of being, and epistemology. Sankhya is strongly dualistic and sees the universe as consisting of 2 independent realities. One is Purush, that is the spiritual part, what is the Prakriti, that is the matter. जो ये यूनिवर्स जो है ये इन 2 इंडिपेंडेंट रियलिटी से ही बना है. Sankhya school is famous for its theory of 3 guns or 3 qualities, that is Sattva, that is Raja, and Tama. Virtue, passion, and dullness, respectively. इन्हीं के इंटरप्ले से ही यूनिवर्स इवोल्यूशन हुआ है. The interplay of all these things led to the evolution of the universe. That's what the Sankhya school says. It was believed that these 3 qualities correctly balanced constituted normality. Yoga. The school that had perfect control over the body and senses was a precursor to the knowledge of ultimate reality. The key text is the Yoga Sutras attributed by Patanjali. So Yoga school is given by Patanjali. It describes 8 stages of yoga, five of which deal with the training, the body, and the rest with the self. The aim of yoga is described as cessation of the activities of the mind. Chitta Vritti Nirodh. Just remember the name. Okay, some more religious text. This is Omacharyam. Omacharyam by Vimal Suri. Proper 4th to 5th means proper Gupta. Prakrit text. Because it is a religious, so what religion? Jain. It's a Jain version of God Ram story. Okay. One is Vishuddhimag. It is a very common thing, common book, very famous, mentioned in mostly all books by Buddha Ghosh. It is a Buddhist text, but 5th century. Vishuddhimag is not a Mauryan. It's not a Mauryan or it's not a time of Ashoka. Remember, it's a 5th century text. That is Gupta, Pali. They also wrote a book Vishuddhimag. That is Buddha Ghosh. Buddha Ghosh wrote this book Vishuddhimag, and it's considered a classical Theravada doctrine. Okay. Now, Manjusri Mulakalp. It is a Buddhist Mahayana text with a chapter on history of India from the early century of AD to the early medieval period. It is also a Gupta literature. Okay, now coming to some poetry. Poetry means secular text, not focusing on any particular religion. Okay, so some book names are very famous and common, mentioned in all regular books, but some extra book names you have to remember. One is Bhasa. Bhasa is very common, very famous. So Swapna Vasavadatam is, this is very common. Now the 4 other things you have to remember: Duta Ghatotkach, Duta Vakya, Balachitra, Charudatta, Madhyam, Vyayog. Okay, this one is very common. Mostly it is mentioned in all books, but these 4 are new. Not new, like it's not mentioned in all books. Okay, Kalidas is very famous. Lot of books are there. His famous poems, Kumara Sambhavam, Raghuvams is very famous. Ritu Samhara very famous. Meghadutam very famous. Mentioned in most of the books. 3 plays. These are poems, huh? 3 plays. Malvika Agnimitram very famous. It was a love story between Agnimitra Shunga and Malvika. Agnimitra Shunga was the son of Pushyamitra Shunga from the Shunga dynasty. Okay, Vikrama Morshivam, Fir Abhigyana Shakuntalam. These are all very famous, all Sanskrit. Okay. Now just remember the name. Kalidas used to write, his style used to be in a particular style of Vidarbha region, that is the Vidarbhi style. Okay, Vidarbhi style. Next, Kamsutra by Vatsyan, very famous. Then Mrichakatika by Sudrak, 5th century AD. Now it is called Little Clay Art. Okay, Little Clay. Just remember the name. It is also called Little Clay by Sudraka. Okay. Now, just you have to remember the names. Nothing in detail is not required here. Now, Bharvi wrote Kiratarjuniam or Kiratarjunia. You can pronounce it. One new thing is there. This is not mentioned in most of the books. This is Nitisara. Nitisara by Kamandaka. 4th century, like same Gupta. It is a work on statecraft addressed to the king. Like you can say, it is like a Arthasastra of Mauryan time. Okay, Arthasastra is very famous. That is also a statecraft. Similarly, kind of, Nitisara is Kamandaka by Kamandaka. It is a work on statecraft. Devi Chandraguptam is very famous by Vishakadatta. Now Panchatantra is very famous by Vishnu Sharma. And yeah, so here Nitisara you can just note it down because it's not mentioned in all books. Rest everything is mentioned. Okay, next coming to, okay, these plays of Gupta period were marked by 2 notable features. See, unlike the Greek plays, Sanskrit plays did not have a tradition of tragedy. संस्कृत प्लेस में ट्रेजेडी नहीं था एंड यूजुअली एंडेड ऑन ए पॉजिटिव नोट पे वो एंड करते थे, लेकिन ग्रीक प्लेस में ट्रेजेडी था. द हायर एंड लोअर क्लासेस स्पोक इन डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस एज डिस्क्राइब्ड बाय द नाट्य शास्त्र. हायर एंड लोअर क्लासेस अलग अलग डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस में स्पोक, दे यूज्ड टू स्पीक, रिमेंबर. ठीक है, जो संस्कृत प्लेस जो होते हैं क्लासेस के हिसाब से देयर इज अ डिवीजन ऑफ स्पीकिंग. Notes on works of Kalidas. Okay, Kumara Sambhavam. See, the detailing is not required. Kumara Sambhavam we know. Raghuvamsh, Ritu Samhara, Meghaduttam. Ritu Samhara is seasons. Hindi term है ऋतु में seasons. मेघ मतलब cloud. Kumara Sambhavam is the birth of Kumar. Okay, Kumar was the son of Kartikeya god, son of Shiva and Parvati. Raghuvamsh was the dynasty about the dynasty of Raghu, and it was related to the solar dynasty. Okay. Okay, fine. Next. Malvika Agnimitram already told. Vikramam Urshivyam, Abhigyana Shakuntalam. Detailing is not required here. So nothing, no need to waste time here. Okay, now coming to dance, drama and poetics. Natya Shastra. Very famous Natya Shastra by Bharat Muni. In normally every book it is mentioned when you read about dance or drama. Okay, so it is also attributed to Bharat Muni. Remember, these are also Gupta text. Now coming to Sanskrit grammar, specifically grammar. Amar Kosh by Amar Simha. It has already come in last year question 2020. Ravanvada by Bhatti. Remember this. This is a new thing. Not mentioned everywhere. Ravanvada by Bhatti. Bhartrihari also important. It is he wrote a commentary on Patanjali's Mahavashya work on grammar. In this way, owing to the work of Sanskrit grammarians, linguistics now emerged as a formal science. Fine. Now coming to astronomy and mathematics. Astronomy and mathematics. Okay, Yavan Jatak by Spuji Dhwaja. Sanskrit translation of Greek text in astrology. ठीक है, astrology पे है. The earliest data evidence of the decimal place value system of notation. This work, however, does not mention the zero. No, it did not, like this particular text did not mention about zero. Roma का सिद्धांत. It is also work on. It is a work on astronomy. This is astrology. This is astronomy. Okay. Now Aryabhatta one. Aryabhatta one is very famous. Aryabhattiya and Aryabhatta Siddhant. Two famous works. Aryabhatta called himself a native of Kusumpur, that is in Patliputra. However, he may have been from Asmaka. Asmaka is a Mahajanapadas in South India, Deccan area. Okay, Asmaka. The 7th century commentator Bhaskaravan calls the Aryabhattiya the Asmaka Tantra or the Asmakya. Just remember the name. 7th century commentator Bhaskar calls the Aryabhattiya also as Asmaka Tantra or Asmakya, and his followers are Asmakyas because he may have been from this particular kingdom in Deccan. It was a Mahajanapada. It was the only Mahajanapadas in South India. Okay. Also, some people say कि Aryabhatta called himself a native of Patliputra. So any kind of question come, you can attend regarding Asmak Tantra or Asmak Yag. It is nothing but the Aryabhattiya. Okay. Aryabhattiya is primarily work on astronomy. It is divided into 3 sections: Ganit, Kalakriya, Gola, very common terms, and it is written in verse couplets in a very terse style, typical of Sutra literature. Okay. These are not required. He is often credited with the inventory of zero. Okay. He also called as the father of algebra. Okay. He was the first astronomer. There's some unique points. He was the first astronomer to give scientific explanation of eclipses. Okay, he established that the shadow of the earth falling on the moon caused eclipse and not some demon trying to shallow the planet. He was the first to say this. He was the first to discover the earth rotated on its axis, which explained westward movement of the stars. He worked out the correct equation for calculating the orbit of a planet and provided an extremely accurate estimate of the length of a solar year. This much. In his honor, the Indian government named its first satellite Aryabhat in 1975. Okay, next you can just note it down these sentences. Varamira, his famous work is Panchasiddhank, mentioned everywhere. Brihad Samhit very famous. Brihad Jatak very famous. Laghu Jatak very famous. Okay, and you can go through this. Nothing important here. Now Bhaskar one, he also wrote a commentary on Aryabhatta and helped in popularizing the work of Aryabhatta. Okay, he came later. Brahma Gupta very famous. Brahma Gupta ka, he was an astronomer, also he was a mathematician. He was famous because he wrote two very important books. One is Brahmasputa Siddhant, and the other one is Khanda Khadyaka. Now see, Brahmasputa Siddhant was the one who correctly established the doctrine of Brahma. इसलिए Brahmasputa Siddhant. And Khanda Khadyaka, it is related to some eating something, because Khanda Khadya, this is the Hindi term Khadya. So Khadyaka, so a piece, it is also known as a piece eatable. Okay, so Brahmasputa Siddhant is the first surviving Indian text that surviving Indian text that discusses astronomical instruments and method of computing astronomical elements from readings taken from them. Okay, and in geometry also he did some work. He gave the formula of the area of a cyclic quadrilateral, because he was also a mathematician, right? So this is a mathematician thing, and astronomer, this is the astronomical thing. Okay, so these are the text names and text names and who wrote them. It's important, exam में आ सकता है. And remember, and Ujjain was a very commercial center during the Gupta. Already covered in the last video, Ujjain was a very important commercial center of the Gupta. So here Ujjain, which lay on the Indian prime meridian, emerged as a center, also center of astronomical studies. Astronomical studies में भी Ujjain बहुत famous था उसी time पे. Okay. Now some numerals were also introduced from India to Arabs, who named them Hindasa. Arabs ने उनको numerals, बहुत सारे numerals यहाँ पे आए from the Arabs, and the term was given as Hindasa. Okay. Next. Now some text on medicine. Charak Sushruta, very famous, everyone knows it. There may have been various systems of medicine in ancient India, but the text and traditions of only Ayurveda came down to us. Ayurveda is still there. Its earliest surviving texts are Charak and Sushrut Samhita, Charak Samhita and Sushrut Samhita. Though their origin may go back to the late 1st millennium BC, but both are added and edited until around 5th century AD, that is Gupta, and thus contain several chronological layers. Origin बहुत पहले का था, बट कहीं ना कहीं उनका फुल फ्लेजेड गुप्ता पे ही आया. Like it was added and edited, and the final, you can say the final version came during this period, Gupta period. ओके, वही सब डिजीज के बारे में काम करते थे. नथिंग टू डायग्नोसिस, ट्रीटमेंट, बहुत सारे हैं. ओके, रिमेंबर सुश्रुत समित कंटेन्स डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ सर्जिकल प्रोसीड्यूर सच एज रिमूवल ऑफ कैटरैक्ट. एस फॉर सुश्रुत, एस फॉर सर्जिकल. ठीक है, इवन प्लास्टिक सर्जरी, जो कि कहीं ना कहीं हमको लगता है कि इट इज अ मॉडर्न कंसेप्ट. नो, प्लास्टिक सर्जरी भी उस टाइम पे था, इवन प्लास्टिक सर्जरी. ठीक है, ओके. और एक है, भागवत ने लिखा था, एक मेडिसिनल टेक्स्ट है और इंपोर्टेंट आयुर्वेदिक, तो उसका नाम है अष्टांग हृदय. ये बहुत कम जगह है, कम बुक्स में है, अष्टांग हृदय. और एक भी है जो कि वेटरनरी साइंस में है, दैट इज इट वाज रिटन बाय पालकप्या, हस्त्य आयुर्वेद. So questions either direct आएंगे, नहीं तो क्वेश्चंस आएंगे which of the following text are secular text or which of the following text are the religious text of गुप्ता. तो वहां पे आपको पता होना चाहिए कि ये एग्जैक्टली क्या है, किसका है और कौन से एरा का है, लाइक विच एरा, हु रोट इट एंड व्हाट एग्जैक्टली द टेक्स्ट. इज इट अ रिलीजियस और अ सेक्युलर? इफ इट इज सेक्युलर, वेदर इट इज अ मैथमेटिशियन, वेदर इट इज एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल, और वेदर इट्स अ मेडिसिन. दैट्स इट, उतना ही याद करना है. और वेदर इट्स एन एग्रीकल्चर, कृषि पारासारा ऑलरेडी कवर्ड. कृषि पारासारा वी हैव कवर्ड. इट वाज अ, जो ब्राह्मण्स लास्ट क्लास में पढ़े थे, ब्राह्मण्स भी सिखाते थे ब्राह्मण्स भी जाके, they were making the poor people who were agriculturalists, making them learn how to do good agriculture from a manual. This manual name was Krishi Parasara. Another manual is also there, that is Manasara. So Krishi Parasara and Manasara are text on agriculture of Gupta. Names not available, this काफी पुराना है, but at least you can know okay the text are from Gupta period and related to agriculture. Now coming to Jain literature. Jain literature में famous एक very famous नाम है जो कि was a very good scholar. His name is Samant Bhadra, which we have already covered in our Jain class, in the Buddhism and Jainism class. Okay, Samant Bhadra भी हमने cover किया है. We have also covered Kund. So these are all part of this. Now you can connect. When you study Jainism and Buddhism, now you are studying Gupta, you can connect the thing. Jainism, we study a lot of things in Jainism, but that does not mean everything happened during that period of the Mahavir. No, after Mahavir, a lot of things happened. So Kunkund was a Digambar monk. All texts attributed to him are in Prakrit. His famous was Samayasara and Pravansara. This also we have covered. These are called as the Bible. Okay, Digambar Bible. Samayasara and Pravansara. Samant Bhadra was also a Digambar monk. He wrote Aptamimansa and Yuktanushashan. See, Aptamimansa naam se, when you see the name, we feel like maybe Uttar Mimans or Purva Mimans ka part hai, Hinduism ka part hai. No. Aptamimansa is Jainism and Yuktanushashan. This सब Samant Bhadra is very famous. Siddhasana Devagara, Nayavatra and Sammatitarka Sutra. Remember, these are the terms you have to remember because exam pe terms ही आएगा and you have to select the religion. That is the trend of UPSC prelims. Okay, तो युक्तानुशासन, अप्तामीमांसा, न्यायवातारा, सम्मातितर का सूत्र. ये न्यायवातारा और सम्मातितर का सूत्र ये सब हिंदुइज्म लग रहा है. It may seem like Hinduism, but it's not. It's Jainism. Okay, पूज्यवापाद ने एक ग्रामेटिकल वर्क लिखा था जिसका नाम है जैनेन्द्र, और ये जैनिज्म का. यू कैन रिमेंबर जे फॉर जैनेन्द्र, जे फॉर जैनिज्म. पूज्यपाद ने लिखा था. ओके, नाउ फॉरेन अकाउंट्स फा हायन ने भी आए थे इस टाइम पे. मेनी चाइनीज मॉन्क्स केम टू इंडिया. द मेन एम ऑफ कलेक्टिंग बुद्धिस्ट टेक्स्ट एंड विजिटिंग places of Buddhist pilgrimage so that they could provide Buddhist back home with an opportunity to visualize places and events connected with Buddha's life. Some of them have left behind their accounts, but only 3 have survived in their entirety. Those of Fa Hien, Winseng and Easton. ये 3 का है जो कि हम दूसरे क्लास में जब हम travelers के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. When we study about travelers, we'll study in detailing. Okay, here very less information is given. Okay. So these are things are not required much. You can just pause it and have a read. We'll be covering in detail. So in evaluation, जैसे कि last to last class में हमने पढ़ा था, like there are 2 kinds of views. Somebody says कि it is a golden age. Okay, जैसे कि nationalist historians have tended to portray the Gupta period as a golden age, with features such as political unification था बहुत, centralized government था, obviously decentralized था, लेकिन फिर भी obviously किंग तो किंग ही रहेगा. तो फाइन लिटरेरी एंड आर्टिस्टिक एक्टिविटी था. ओवरऑल इकोनॉमिक एंड सोशल प्रॉस्पेरिटी था. ये एक नेशनलिस्ट हिस्टोरियंस दे हैव ए व्यू, बट पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस पर्सपेक्टिव्स थोड़ा चेंज हुआ है. टेंड टू व्यू दैट दिस इज अ रिएक्शन टू इंपीरियलिस्ट हिस्टोरियोग्राफी एंड पॉइंट आउट सेवरल फ्यूडल फीचर्स, जो कि सच्चाई है. लास्ट वीडियो में हमने किया था कि यहाँ पे फ्यूडलिज्म बहुत बढ़ गया और इट गेव अ वेरी स्ट्रेंज पॉलिटिकल थिंग टू द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन और द नेक्स्ट डायनेस्टीज. Feudalism बहुत बढ़ गया because land grants were happening at a very increasing rate, and several feudal features that existed during the Gupta period, such as royal land grants, transfer of rights to the beneficiaries over population, revenue and administration, increased prevalence of forced labor, decline in trade. और ये भी truth है because there was decline in trade during the second half or the last part of later Guptas, and their growth of समानता जो तो feudatories, and the feudatories उनके पास इतना पावर आ गया कि feudatories आहिस्ता आहिस्ता started to rebel against the king. तो वो सब नेगेटिव पॉइंट है. तो हाउ कैन यू कॉल दिस एज अ गोल्डन एज? सो इट्स अ क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस. ठीक है, देयर आर सम गुड पॉइंट्स दिस ऑल, बट देयर आर आल्सो अ क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस. यू हैव टू एक्सप्लेन दिस पैराग्राफ इन अ literary format by giving one line. Okay, if a question comes in GS1 में अगर question आएगा, you have to critically examine क्या ये सच में, is it really a golden age of ancient India? You have to give the good points, then you have to write all these things, the negative, कि इकोनॉमिक कम हुआ था, फ्यूडल बहुत बढ़ गया था, बेनिफिशियरीज को ब्राह्मण्स को ज़्यादा दिया गया, ओवर द पॉपुलेशन को कम दिया गया, तो बेनिफिशियरीज लैंड बेनिफिशियरीज को बहुत ज़्यादा पावर मिल गया, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन रेवेन्यू राइट्स मिल गया. They started, इसीलिए in the later Gupta the kings were not that powerful because they became very much powerful. These feudatories became very much powerful. However, neither of the extreme views seem convincing. While notable advancements were made in the field of art and culture अच्छा था under the patronage of urban elites, the same cannot be said about the other aspects of society. And the condition of the poor, condition of women was very much patriarchy in nature, वो भी चल रहा था. Untouchables continue to suffer. So how can we call this as a golden age? Similarly, though land grants reflect changes in agrarian relations that intensified in earlier medieval period, there is insufficient evidence to argue in favor of any marked decline in craft, trade or urbanism. तो आपको दो साइड लिख के एक आंसर बनाना पड़ेगा. ओके, सो वी आर डन विथ गुप्ता एंड नेक्स्ट क्लास में हम पोस्ट गुप्ता शुरू करेंगे. ओके, थैंक यू.